I was just digging a damn hole to plant a peach tree and I hit a damn skull. A human skull. In my own backyard. 10 minutes later, Karen shows up screaming, calls 911 on me, says I'm a serial killer. What the actual hell is going on? Would you keep digging? Or run? Comment where you're watching from. This one's wild. This all started with a leaky goddamn pipe. Not a conspiracy, not a murder, not a haunting. Just a dumb, rusty pipe under the back garden that decided to blow its guts out right after I made my last mortgage payment. Typical. So I dig. I dig like hell. Middle of July, sweat pouring into my eyes, shirt stuck to my back like I'm cooking ribs on it. About 2 feet down, I hit something that doesn't feel like dirt, not rock either. Hollow? Dry. I'm thinking, maybe it's one of those dumbass irrigation lines the previous owner put in, the kind of system that waters weeds better than grass. But when I clear off the soil, I see white, off-white, like a bone. A long, curved piece, kind of like a rib. I stop, pull back, scratch my head. Then I mutter the one sentence you never want to say on your own property. That's not a fucking rock. Not a... Now, here's where it gets stupid. I live in Whispering Cedars, a master-planned hellhole with houses that look cloned and a homeowners association with more rules than the IRS. And our HOA president. Her name's Karen Greenwald, and I swear she wakes up every morning and chooses chaos. She once fined me because my grass grew half an inch too high while I was in the hospital. So I know if she sees me digging, she's going to assume I'm building a nuclear silo or sacrificing goats. And sure enough, just as I'm squatting there staring at what sure as hell looks like a human rib, I hear the sound flip-flop, slap, slap, slap. Karen, in all her glory, pink visor, clipboard, and that face like she smelled something unpleasant, which, in fairness, was probably my armpits after 4 hours in the sun. What are you doing? She snaps, squinting down at me like she's a prison warden. I stand up slow, brush off dirt, and answer like a polite southern gentleman. Replacing a pipe. Karen, trying to avoid flooding my house again. Want to help dig. She doesn't laugh. What's that, she asks. Pointing. I shrug. Dunno. Bone. Maybe. Could be an old deer or something. This property used to be ranch land. Right, but Karen's already got her phone out, dialing 3 numbers like she's speed-running Snitch of the Year. Yes, hello, I need police assistance. There's a man with a shovel and human remains. Yes, a skeleton. No, I don't feel safe. I couldn't believe it. I didn't even say the word skeleton. You're calling 911 over an old bone, I bark, throwing my gloves off. Jesus, Karen. I said it might be a deer. It might be murder, she shouts, already backing away like I'm about to bash her skull in with a PVC elbow joint. I shake my head. Lady, you've been watching too much goddamn Dateline. She shrieks again. He's being aggressive. I think he's hiding evidence, God help me. The only thing I was hiding was the fact I hadn't showered in 2 days. 15 minutes later, I got 2 squad cars in my driveway, a nosy neighbor filming with her iPhone, and Karen crying fake tears about how she feared for her life because my tone was threatening. I'll admit I wasn't exactly calm. Officer, I'm telling you, I was replacing a pipe, found a weird bone. That's it. The cop young guy, blonde crew cut, looked barely old enough to shave, takes a look in the hole. Whistles low. You sure that's deer? Nope. I said, that's why I didn't throw it out. He radios it in. 2 more units show up, along with some guy from the local sheriff's office wearing a big, stupid hat and carrying more ego than gun. Then the archaeologist shows up. Yeah, a goddamn archaeologist. In my backyard. You ever see an archaeologist pissed off about getting called to a backyard in the suburbs? Neither had I. Dr. Elaine Mendoza rolled up in an old beat-up Subaru, wearing cargo pants, steel-toed boots, and an expression that screamed, "Don't waste my fucking time." The sheriff, who still hadn't bothered learning my name and was calling me the digger, waved her over like she was his intern. "This your expert?" I asked, crossing my arms. Dr. Mendoza shot me a look and ignored the sheriff completely. She crouched next to the hole, brushed some dirt off the bone, and froze. "I need a tarp." Now, that's when I knew I was screwed. Fast forward 2 hours. My backyard is taped off like a CSI episode, and Mendoza's down there with tiny brushes, pulling out piece after piece, pelvis, skull fragment, teeth, and then she finds something weird. A belt buckle, and not just any buckle. This thing is old, hand-forged, rusted but engraved with a date May 14th, 1873. "Son of a bitch," I muttered. "What the hell's buried in my yard, doctor?" Mendoza stands up, wipes sweat from her brow, and finally talks to me. "You live on part of the old Carson plantation," she says. "This isn't a murder scene. It's a burial. Possibly a slave grave or unmarked settler site." I blink. Karen just called the cops on a fucking century-old skeleton. "Looks like it," Mendoza says, "but there's more." She pulls out a shard of pottery painted blue and gold. I recognize the style instantly. "Vietnamese porcelain?" I ask. Shocked. "French colonial import." She nods. "Very rare. Belonged to someone wealthy. Or someone who stole it." Suddenly, the whole thing smells different. Not just death, history, deep, buried, and probably forgotten for a reason. Karen, of course, is now telling reporters that she discovered the site. I always suspected there was something historically significant here. She coos into the local news camera, voice like saccharine poison. "It's about preserving our cultural heritage." "Bitch, you called the cops on me for touching a PVC pipe." The sheriff pulls me aside. Real serious now. "Listen, we're turning this over to the State Historical Commission. Until then, you can't go back there. That's officially protected ground." My mouth drops open. "You're telling me I can't access my own fucking backyard?" "It's an active excavation," he says. "This isn't your call anymore." Mendoza looks uncomfortable. "Sorry, Ray, this site might change everything we know about this part of Georgia. There's Vietnamese porcelain, an 1873 buckle, and possibly human remains that don't match European ancestry. What are you saying? I'm saying this might be a cover-up. This grave was hidden deep, and it wasn't marked. Somebody didn't want it found." I go back inside, slam the door, and look at the framed photo of my grandfather, born and raised in this town. I remember what he used to say. "This land's seen things it don't talk about." Well, maybe it's time we started talking, because I don't know what the hell I dug up, but it's bigger than HOA fines and Karen's little clipboard crusade, and I'll be damned if they're gonna fence me out of my own fucking history. It's funny, the way history just kinda leaks. It seeps through floorboards, sticks to rusted hinges, hides in places no HOA paperwork ever looked. After they put up the official state historical site sign over my goddamn fence, I knew I had to move fast. They were already fencing it off with that stupid green mesh, temporarily closed for cultural preservation, more like permanently hijacked. So I did what any red-blooded, slightly paranoid, whiskey-fueled homeowner would do. I broke in. At 312 a.m., with a crowbar, headlamp, and a half-dead flashlight. Call it vandalism. Call it trespassing. But I call it taking back what's mine. The excavation site looked ghostly in the moonlight. Dirt mounds like burial cairns, half-uncovered bones covered in plastic sheeting, and a neat pile of artifacts tagged and labeled. Then I saw it. Tucked inside a clear evidence bag was a rusted locket hinged open. Inside a miniature watercolor painting of a woman. Dark eyes, high cheekbones. Vietnamese features, maybe? Underneath it, one word, scrawled in old ink. My. I barely had time to process it before I heard a sound behind me. Crunch of gravel. Karen, in her damn pink robe, face lit up by porch light, holding a phone in one hand and a mug in the other. She saw me, blinked, and her voice went full shriek. Yine one. Yes, it's the same man again. He's back. I think he's desecrating a grave. Yes, he's waving something in the air. He might be armed with what history? Cops showed up again. I didn't run this time. Hell, I wanted them to arrest me. Maybe then someone would listen. I shoved the bag into the officer's chest. Tell Mendoza this isn't just a burial, it's a fucking story. Someone loved someone enough to bury them with a damn portrait. That matters. He looked at the bag, at the painting, and didn't say a word. 3 days later, Mendoza came to my house. This time, no boots, no clipboard, just a folder. She set it on my table and opened it slowly, like it might bite. The skeleton is female, she said. Mid-20s. Asian ancestry. Evidence of trauma, blunt force to the skull. She didn't die peacefully. I stared at the photo of the locket. That tiny painted face. Who was she? Mendoza shrugged. That's where it gets weirder. The porcelain we found imported through French Indochina. Your land. It sits on the trail of a now-lost underground route used by indentured Asian laborers in the Reconstruction era. This could be one of the earliest Vietnamese settlers in Georgia. My throat tightened. And someone murdered her. She nodded. Most likely. Suddenly, Karen and her clipboard games felt like ants at the edge of a fire. I wasn't just dealing with HOA bullshit anymore. This was about legacy, about truth buried deep under the dirt. And maybe it was about justice. That night, I stood in the yard again, looking at the hole. The wind was blowing through the pine trees like whispers. You're not forgotten, I said aloud, voice barely steady. I don't know who hurt you, but I swear on my goddamn name I'll find out. Then I felt it. Not cold. Not fear. Just something old and watching. Maybe the past never really dies. Maybe it just waits to be uncovered. It wasn't over after the town hall blew up like a goddamn soap opera. 2 days after I aired Karen's dirty HOA laundry on live television, Channel 6 ran a follow-up story. This one had drone footage of my backyard, aerial shots of the excavation pit, and interviews with real historians who started throwing around big words like ethnic erasure and systemic silencing. Suddenly, the same neighbors who once complained about my porch light being too bright were leaving bunt cakes and "We support you" Ray signs on my mailbox. Hell must have frozen over. But fame's a funny thing. By the third day, there were cars parked up and down the street, strangers from Atlanta, Savannah, even one van from a ghost hunting YouTube channel. They wanted a piece of the action. Some wanted selfies with me, the guy who found the ghost girl. Others just wanted the story to be spooky enough for content. One dumbass in a fedora tried climbing into the dig site with a fucking EMF reader. I threatened to bury him next. Meanwhile, Lily was working like a little war general. Uncle Ray, she said one morning, sliding a flash drive across the table. I downloaded the HOA archives from the Wayback Machine. I stared at her. The what? It's like Google, but for the past? Anyway, check the 2007 records. Karen had that land zoned as undeveloped, even though your deed goes back to the 1870s. She paused. Also, there's a weird letter from someone named C.B. approving the reclassification. There was that name again. C.B. Chills crawled up my spine. Who the hell was hiding behind those initials? I decided to pay a visit to the one guy who knew every dark corner of this town. Sheriff Thomas Early. Old-timer. Vietnam vet. Used to drink with my dad before his liver gave out. You could still smell gun oil on his uniform from 3 decades ago. His office was buried behind 2 broken vending machines and a trophy buckhead with one eye missing. Ray. If this is about that damn HOA again, it's about murder. Tom. 1889. A woman named Mai buried on my land. Someone tried to wipe her off the record, and I think Karen's part of a bigger goddamn cover-up? He didn't even blink. Just reached into a drawer and pulled out a dusty folder labeled BPH case file closed. BPH Briar Patch Hollow. You weren't supposed to see this, he muttered, sliding the folder over. Inside photographs, black and white shots of bone fragments unearthed back in 1979 by a construction crew laying HOA sewer lines. Notes marked no action taken. Signatures blurred, but one jumped out C. Bannerman. That was it. C. B. Back home, Lily and I did what any modern investigator would do. We Googled the shit out of him. Charles Bannerman? Real estate magnate? Head of the Bannerman Group? And surprise founding member of the Lakeview Oaks HOA, dead since 2012. But his son Preston Bannerman, still alive, still filthy rich, and still living 3 streets over in a hideous Tuscan-style mansion with 5 security cameras and an imported Japanese koi pond. The same Preston who tried to buy my land 5 years ago when I was laid off from the factory. I told him to fuck off. Now it made sense. That night, while Lily was asleep, I sat outside watching the stars. Just me, the cicadas, and a bottle of something cheap but fiery. It wasn't just about Karen anymore. It was about a goddamn legacy of erasure, 100 years of whitewashing and land stealing, and now they wanted to paint over bones with golf course mulch and HOA bylaws. Well, fuck that. This was my land, Mai's land, and I was going to burn down the whole rotten tree if I had to. The next morning, a letter arrived. No stamp. No sender. Just slid under my door in a white envelope. Inside, stop digging. You have no idea what you're stirring up. Final warning. No signature. But I smelled Karen's perfume on it cheap. Overcompensating. Something like fake roses and mold. Lily found me in the garage staring at it like it might explode. Uncle Ray, she said carefully. I don't think they're bluffing anymore, neither did I. I turned and pointed at the back wall. Grab the axe, and we're going deeper tonight. If you've never dug a hole at midnight, while your 14-year-old niece shines a flashlight over your shoulder and keeps watch for pissed-off billionaires in golf carts, let me tell you, it changes you. We were out there in the sticky Georgia dark, surrounded by pine, cicadas, and the scent of red clay. My knuckles were bleeding, my back screamed for mercy, and the only reason I kept going was because they wanted me to stop. That damn note, "Stop digging," it wasn't a warning. It was a challenge. And if they thought I'd walk away, they didn't know shit about me. There's something under here, Lily whispered, crouched low next to the trench. She was right. The shovel hit something solid. Metallic? Hollow? It wasn't a coffin, not this time. We scraped away the dirt slowly, careful not to damage what turned out to be a welded steel hatch, camouflaged with stone veneer and tree roots. Some HOA bastard had gone to real effort to hide this. And right there, engraved faintly on the rusted metal BPH Utilities Access, 1948. Utilities? My ass. There were no records of this tunnel on any map. I grabbed the crowbar, popped the latches one by one, and pulled. The hatch groaned open with a hiss of decades-old air, the kind that smells like mildew, copper, and secrets. Do we go down? Lily asked. Hell yes, we go down, I muttered, flicking on my headlamp. You stay up top and I keep lookout. I'll be back in 20 minutes. She didn't answer, just handed me her phone with the video already rolling. Document everything, Uncle Ray. Like Mom taught me. God, her mom would have been proud. The ladder led down about 20 feet before hitting concrete. I landed in a chamber no bigger than a utility closet, but with a narrow hallway extending deeper underground, lined with old conduit, exposed wires, and what looked like ancient moisture-logged file cabinets. The whole thing reeked of Cold War paranoia and bad intentions. My boots echoed against the floor as I moved, scanning each surface. The walls had plaques faded, chipped with names, Vietnamese, Lao, Thai, all women. This wasn't just a tunnel, it was a damn archive. And then I saw it. At the end of the corridor, a small locked steel door, and someone had spray painted a single word in red over it. Lied line. I stared at that word for a long time. Not deadline. Lied line. A line of lies. Shit was poetic in the most terrifying way. I snapped a photo and started picking the lock with my pocket knife. Not ideal, but I wasn't walking away. 3 tense minutes later, the door creaked open and my stomach dropped. The room inside was lit by a flickering emergency bulb. No windows, no cameras. Just a table. A dozen wooden boxes labeled with decades 1970, 1965, 1942, 1889. I opened the last one with shaking hands. Inside, a blood-stained cotton blouse. A locket with a photo of a young woman. My handwritten letters, dozens of them. A ledger marked evictions processed BPH, Phase 1 into V. They were clearing out immigrants by force. Women like Mai were just the beginning. I'd been standing on a goddamn mass displacement project. And my land, my tiny slice of Georgia, was the one they never managed to cover up. Just then, my phone buzzed. Lily 127. M, a white Escalade just pulled up. 2 guys got out. They're armed. I'm hiding behind the chicken coop. My blood turned to ice. I grabbed every folder I could carry, slammed the hatch behind me, and climbed that ladder like the devil was on my heels. As soon as my head broke ground, I saw the flashlight beam not Lily's. "He's here," a voice shouted. "Motherfuckers!" I sprinted across the yard, zigzagging through the trees while gunfire erupted behind me small caliber. Silenced, but still goddamn terrifying in the dead of night. Lily was already in the truck, engine running, eyes wide. "Go!" she screamed. I jumped in and peeled out, tearing down the gravel driveway as bullets snapped through branches overhead. For a moment, I saw one of the men silhouetted in my rear-view slicked back hair. Black jacket, earpiece, private security, Preston Bannerman's people. He'd sent the wolves. We didn't stop until we reached Sheriff Early's cabin on the edge of the Oconee National Forest. He opened the door in a bathrobe and slippers, shotgun already in hand. "The hell did you bring to my doorstep at 2 a.m.? Ray, I tossed the folders on his table. The end of the Bannerman family tree, and probably a couple of felony charges. He opened the ledger, read for about 3 minutes before muttering, "Son of a bitch." Then he picked up the phone and called someone I'd never heard him speak to before. "Yeah, it's me. This ain't a drill. BPH archives real. I got eyes on Bannerman's fingerprints. Who the hell was he calling?" He hung up after 10 words. "State Historical Commission," he said. "And if we're lucky, the feds—" Lily sat quietly in the corner, clutching her iPad. "They'll come again," she said. "Won't they?" I looked at her, at the fear in her eyes, and I made a promise I hadn't made since her mother died. "Not if I burn their kingdom to the ground first." She nodded once. Calm. Determined. The girl didn't flinch when bullets flew. She was Walker blood. Through and through. By sunrise, every news van in 3 counties was parked outside the sheriff's cabin. And I'll be damned if I didn't enjoy watching them sweat for once. See, the night didn't end when I dropped those folders on the table. It ended with Karen in handcuffs. Preston Bannerman's name trending on Twitter, and the first federal preservation order ever filed for a ghost town that never officially existed, Briar Patch Hollow. Let me back up. We started the day with an offer, a dirty one. Preston's lawyer called Sheriff Early Direct, said if we handed over the misunderstood documents, they'd forgive the HOA liens, throw in 50 grand to make it go away, and give us exclusive hunting rights on the old mill land. Tell Bannerman he can shove his 50 grand up his antique-loving ass. I growled. With splinters, Lily added helpfully from the couch. The lawyer didn't call back. Karen, meanwhile, I cracked like a ceramic rooster. After years of being a petty tyrant in a pink blazer, turns out all it took was a holding cell and a camera in her face. She went full Lifetime movie meltdown in the sheriff's office, crying, praying, accusing everyone from those communist neighbors to Vietnamese hackers from TikTok. Preston made me do it. She sobbed. He said we'd finally clean out the un-American elements. I was about to slap her if Lily didn't beat me to it with words. Miss Karen, you're not a patriot. You're a parasite, she said coldly. And your HOA code violations are unconstitutional. Even the sheriff winced. Karen shut up after that. But the real hammer didn't drop till we went public. See, Lily had uploaded everything to a secure cloud folder video of the hidden hatch, scans of the eviction ledgers, and a screen recording of the HOA's internal Slack, where someone named P. Bannerman Sr. had posted the message, "Clean out BPH completely by July 4th. I want the past buried literally. My girl had receipts. We released it all, live, Facebook, YouTube, Reddit, Instagram, even TikTok. And the algorithm did its thing. That afternoon, the State Historic Preservation Division showed up with FBI agents in tow. One of them asked if I knew how serious this was. Serious enough to get shot at in my own damn yard, I said, tossing him the old deed from 1889. He read it, whistled low. You're not just a landowner? Mr. Walker, you're sitting on the original boundary marker for the Freedmen's Burial Grounds of Hollow Creek Plantation. This is federal now. He turned to Lily. Young lady, did you dig this up? He did the digging, she said, pointing at me. I just exposed the truth. Karen flipped full informant mode in less than 12 hours. Told them everything. Preston had inherited the HOA as a front. They'd bought up properties through fake fines, foreclosure auctions, and intimidation, all to clear the land for a boutique plantation-themed resort. Because nothing says luxury like paving over buried trauma, he called it the past repackaged. Karen wept. Said tourists love old stories if you sell them with mimosas. They arrested her mid-sentence. The Bannerman trial was televised. I wore a suit. Didn't like it. Karen showed up in prison orange. That I liked. Lily testified like a pro, calm, articulate, factual. When Bannerman's lawyer tried to rattle her, she just asked objection. Is gaslighting allowed in cross-examination? The whole courtroom laughed. Except Preston. He looked like he was chewing glass. We won. Not just the case, we won the damn narrative. CNN called it the first digital age victory for grassroots historic justice. The burial site was preserved. Bannerman was sentenced to 18 years. Karen got 5 in mandatory therapy. The HOA dissolved forever. 1 year later, Briar Patch Hollow is on the National Register of Historic Places. There's a museum now funded by state grants and donations. The old trail is reopened, with signs in English, Spanish, and Vietnamese. Lily helped design them. One plaque reads, "In memory of the women buried under silence. May truth outlive fear." And me, I still live on the ranch. Still cuss too much. Still don't trust anyone who calls themselves chairperson. But I do know this. If Karen hadn't called 911 on the wrong damn day, I never would have uncovered the truth. Never would have known what was under my feet. Never would have seen my niece become the fiercest little truth teller this state's ever known. So yeah, Karen called the cops, and we answered with the feds. Guess who's still standing? You know what this whole mess taught me? When people in power think they can rewrite history or bury the truth 6 feet deep, they'll do anything to keep you from digging. Lie, threaten, even weaponize the goddamn HOA. But truth has a way of clawing its way back up to the surface. And if you've got a shovel, some stubbornness, and one hell of a daughter like mine, they don't stand a damn chance. So here's my advice document. Everything. Question authority. And when Karen calls 911 on you, make sure you've got the receipts. This is Ray, and you just heard another story from HOA Karen Files, where petty power meets real people and loses. If you've ever had a neighbor from hell or got HOA horror of your own, drop a comment below. I read every damn one. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Trust me, you won't believe what's coming next.